I rented this camera, the GFX100S, combined with the GF63mm f2.8 for 3 days. And in this video I'm going to share the experiences I have. But before we do so, the reason why I actually rented this beast of a camera was because I got very much intrigued by medium format. And it's not as much because of YouTube, but more I saw somebody here locally walking with one. I started talking to this photographer and he'd rented this as well, but he'd shot before on medium format. And he told me it's image quality wise, you'll experience nothing quite like it. It's like, okay, I need to try that once. Maybe I can get a cheap used camera. Well, no, you can't. So I decided to rent it, got home, put this on, and first thing I noticed here, look at this, the grip. The grip for somebody with big fingers like I have is next to perfect. It is great here on the front. Yeah, very deep, enough space between your fingers and the lens, which is great. And on the back it really falls well with the thumb rest, with the Q button here. But in this case, you know, you don't touch it. So it's very well designed. It lays nicely in the hand. Here you can charge this via USB. The battery in it is one we all know from the X-T4 and the XS20s. Here you go. So this guarantees up to 400 shots, and to be very honest, at the time of recording I didn't even take that many shots, because that's one of the things of this camera, yeah. When I combine it with this lens, the 63mm f2.8, and this was the cheapest lens I could find to rent, and it goes all the way up from f2.8 to f32. f32, insane. If you would size this down to full frame, the 63mm on full frame is about 50mm with an aperture of f2.0, 2.2. So on APS-C it's about 37mm to 40mm with an f1.8. Yeah, so it's relatively fast. It didn't get the best reviews, but I just tested it. And the first thing that you notice with this camera, if you put, for instance, if I compare this, the sensor size, you see this? This is ginormous. Now, if I put this camera next to my Micro Four Thirds, yeah, the Lumix GX880, episode coming up, that's a difference. Now, if I put it next to my Fujifilm X-T30 Mark II APS-C, you'll see the difference. When I put it next, even when I put it next to my Sony A7III full frame, you'll still see a significant difference in sensor size. Yeah, I'm laughing. I just find it utterly mind-boggling. Yeah? One of the things about this camera which I really like off the bat is the way it switches on. Hoppa, there we go. Yeah, nice sturdy button. Doesn't seem to do so. You have a little display here which you can modify, you know, you can modify these buttons here. You see the same dials as you see on the XH2 and on the XS20. On the back here, very simple. You see all your menu systems. The menu is pretty awesome. It's still the same as on any Fuji camera. So if you're like me, somebody who's used to that system, it's absolutely fantastic. Yeah, and this really lays very well in the hand, and the files you get out of here are 16-bit. Yeah, and if you start shooting compressed RAW and or lossless RAW, one of those two, and the files are just gigantic. So now, what about the shooting experience and the image quality? And that's why I kind of rented this camera. The quality of the images coming out of this camera, and I just started shooting RAW also because nowadays in Lightroom you can easily get all the Fujifilm simulation. And there's one picture where when I saw it I was a bit disappointed, like, damn it, that shot is really grainy. And then I looked at the shot and you see it here a bit more careful, and I was like, oh, that's not grain, that's texture of the wall. Yeah, so this kind of shows you how sharp it is. But also when you, for instance, shoot here the church tower, yeah, our local market, the level of detail I got, I've never seen before in terms of dynamic range, but also in terms of sharpness. So I'm really impressed by how well this camera captures reality and how sharp it is. Yeah, and then you come home and you put it into your Apple MacBook Mini M1, where I never had problems with any kind of digital files, and you put it in and you definitely notice that even the M1 is struggling to do this as fast as possible, specifically when you go into Lightroom. So that's one of the things that I really noticed. One other thing I really noticed is the bokeh on this. Even when you take close-up shots on f11, it's fantastic. Sun stars, to me, were like, wow. This is the easiest I ever shot on sun stars. Fantastic. The overall, the dynamic range is fantastic. This lens, for instance, I shot it a few times against the sun just to see. No fringing, nothing of it. It's just perfectly well balanced. So I'm really impressed with the image quality here. But where I really found this camera really excelling is in low light. I was trying to do some astrophotography, but unfortunately the skies were completely clouded. I couldn't do much with it. So I started to go at nighttime in my little hometown, and I was really surprised by how well these images looked. They're all shot at ISO 1600 with relatively low shutter speeds. And this is where you really see the difference. So if I were to be an astrophotographer or somebody who loves neon light, hey, this camera is absolutely fantastic. So I can, on the actual files, there's little to no noise. You can retrieve anything, shadows, highlights, you basically name it. It is an absolute joy editing on these night pictures, yeah. But then the shooting experience is great as well in terms of how this exactly handles, you know, how fast it is. I heard a lot of people say, oh, this is slow, it's not as fast, the autofocus. Yeah, at times it isn't, but you know, what do I care? I'm trying to really compose here. This is interesting, I'm trying to compose. I think this is great. Really a fantastic camera, and I'd like to own it, but there's three little problems here for me. First of all, I've carried it around 2 to 3 afternoons now, and I'm walking around, you know, with my little strap here and my little bag. This weighs a ton. After 2-3 hours the next days, you know, you can honestly say my muscles have gone nice and tight now. This is very heavy. So for me, for street and travel photography, however great the image quality is, I would never take this. This is way too much overkill. It's way too big, it's way too heavy, it's way too bulky. That's the first reason. Second reason, the file sizes. Yes, it's great, but you know, if you really want to use this to the optimum, you need quite a powerful processor to be able to deal with these files in a quick way. So that's an additional investment in most cases, which I'm not willing to make. I'm street and travel photography centric or everyday centric. However great the image quality out of this is, if I were to buy this, A, I don't think it would suit my needs, but B, it would be a very significant investment, because you don't only buying the camera, you're buying the body. So you'll be spending 7, 8, 9, 10,000 easily without breaking a sweat. So I think it's a great experience renting these cameras. I really do, and I can recommend it to everybody. But in the end of the day, it's a very specific market. It's definitely aimed at pros.